And a very good morning to you. This is the Talk of the Town. And boy, what a talk of the town this is going to be. Our guest this morning is Mr. Hejaaz Hizbullah, attorney at law, fully experienced with the PTA, being detained, and also now commenting on the anti-terrorism bill. Good morning to you, Hejaaz.
Good morning, Faraz.
So, the last time you were due in our studio, you got arrested that morning, or
Yes,
that afternoon,
that
or
afternoon.
actually that later that evening, I suppose. So instead of making it to Newsline, you made it to the news.
Yes.
Well, not bad, is it,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
But tell me, how was that, your experience, the PTA, being detained? Nice, pleasant experience?
Well, retrospectively, I would say it's been. I'm in many ways thankful because it has opened my eyes, brought a lot of perspective about a lot of things, being a lawyer and in life as well. But of course, it did open my eyes to how unjust this law is and how dangerous it is. How people, innocent people, can be taken and how the police can come up with all sorts of stories and how people can be kept in custody for a very, very, very long period of time. I spent 10 months in the CID, and then I spent 1 year as a remand prisoner at the New Magazine prison, where I was with around 70 Tamil political prisoners, and they have been there for 15, 16, 17 years under the PTA, and some of them have walked home acquitted of all charges after 17 years in custody.
My goodness. And how does it compare, the proposed anti-terrorism bill?
It's much worse.
That AT is much
ATA
worse.
is much worse. It's much worse and much more dangerous. ATA targets a different kind of situation, and that is political and democratic dissent. PTA targeted a terrorist, a violent criminal situation, and in a very, very draconian way, very, very harsh approach to political violence. But ATA is targeting political expression, political dissent, political activism. So obviously, this is far more dangerous.
And does Sri Lanka need an anti-terrorism law?
Well, it's not for me to say whether Sri Lanka needs an anti-terrorism law. It's for the people who bring the law to say that they need an anti-terrorism law. And have you seen that happening in the discussion? That's something that the media has to do. Has anybody come and said, this is why we need it? And if you look at all those provisions, justifying each provision, saying this is the kind of threat there is and that is why we need this, we don't see that.
How good or useful was the PTA when it came to fighting the terrorism perpetrated by the LTTE?
Well, did it stop the LTT?
Well, exactly. This came to being in 1979.
And also, did it stop the Easter Sunday bomb attacks? It didn't. We had the PTA when the Easter Sunday bomb attacks, and I have a theory and I have an argument that in fact the PTA stopped the Easter Sunday bomb. The PTA helped the Easter Sunday bomb attacks happening, particularly with regard to those Vaunathivu incident where the 2 policemen were arrested, where because the PTA was applied to those suspects, the real suspects went scot-free. And that whole thing...
Never to be found.
They were found after the Easter Sunday bombing.
Too late. And so it looks like we may need to have some... But isn't this penal code enough for us to deal with much of these things?
Well, even if the penal code is... Well, even if the penal code is not enough, that has to be for something extremely serious.
What happens if we didn't have the PTA or this anti-terrorism bill, but we only had the existing laws? How would the president control?
He has the power to make emergency regulations under the Public Safety Ordinance, and if there is a real, tangible, cognizable threat, certainly I have no doubt that that he'll be able to get the relevant consensus in Parliament and to have a bill go in to meet any emerging situation.
One of the more unusual aspects of the anti-terrorism bill is that the entire police force can make sort of decisions.
Yes. The power of arrest is given to every police officer. And another thing, Faraz, I just want to highlight to your listeners is that there is this notion that this bill can be challenged in the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court will fix it. no, the Supreme Court can't fix everything because under the Constitution, certain rights can be restricted by law. So the Supreme Court has no option but to say this is law and they're restricting these rights. Well, that's it. So how the restrictions are happening, that's a matter for political discussion, and that's where the people in Parliament. That's for Parliament to do. That's not for the Supreme Court to do. So there's a limit to which the Supreme Court can, within the ambit of its jurisdiction, intervene to help the citizen. Parliament needs to do the balance work. So that's why people talking about it and people agitating against it and speaking to their parliamentarians is very, very, very important.
And actually, it is time now for the people to do some work.
Yes. And maybe it might be the last time as well if the ATA comes along.
Indeed, because otherwise you won't be able to do it. Arugales will never happen then.
I have my doubts. Well, it's a very intimidating act.
Right.
So people are going to be very scared.
Well,
I certainly will be.
And you've come
Yes.
through the mill.
Yes.
Indeed. Well, at least you've retained your sense of humour, Hejaaz Hizbullah.
Thank you.
Well, that's the way it was with Hejaaz Hizbullah on Talk of the Town. Now, back to the studio with Dom and Asanka. Thank you.